Thank you, Ron. That's a tough act to follow. But the judge did touch on some things that I couldn't agree with more. Some words he said that really made my ears perk up. Logic. Common sense. That's why you're here. We need your logic and we need your common sense. I guess there could be a system, like the judge alluded to yesterday, where we could have professional jurors to overthink this whole thing. Overthink the facts, which is what you are, the finders of facts, and the evidence, which is what we're going to present to you from that witness stand right there in the form of testimony and exhibits, like the judge said. But they wouldn't be using logic and common sense. They'd be using analytics and overthinking. And we don't want that in our system. We need you here with your common sense. Now, my daddy said, a person that talks too long don't have a whole lot to say, so I'm going to try not to do that. But humor me for a minute. There's a young boy, and he's fishing on a dock in a harbor. And he does this every day. It's his favorite thing to do. And while he's fishing, an old man comes up to the young boy, and he says, "Young man, you see those marlin jumping out there in the ocean?" "Yes, sir." "Would you believe me if I told you that I hold the world's record for catching the biggest marlin out there in that harbor?" "Yes, sir, I'd believe you. I've got no reason not to believe you. I've seen you fishing out here my whole life. If you say it, I believe it." And then the young boy got to thinking about what the old man just told him. And he loves fishing, so he wants to hear more about it. So he says, "Sir, tell me about this fish. How big was it? Can I see it? I mean, that must be a huge fish. I know you mounted it. It's a trophy over your mantle." "No, I don't know how big it was. I don't remember. I cut it up and used it as bait." "You did what? A game fish that big and you didn't mount it? Cut it up and used it as bait. Okay. Well, did other people see it? Other people had to help you to pull a fish that big up on your boat. You had to have help." "Oh, yeah, I had lots of help. I had a whole crew. I had me and my crew and my first mate. We were all out there. They helped me pull it in the boat." "Well, great. Can I talk to them? Can they tell me about how big the fish was? Maybe they remember. I really want to become a fisherman like you one day. I want to know what I got to do. I want to know what's in store for me." "No, can't talk to them. I fired them. They're gone. They're missing. I don't remember their names. They're scattered to the four winds. I don't even know where they are." "Okay, fired your crew. Well, what about photographs? Did you take any photographs of the fish? You had to take photographs." Old man says, "Oh yeah, we all took photographs. We all had cameras. We took photographs of the fish, lots of pictures." "Great. Can I see a picture of the fish? I really, really want to be like you one day. I want to be a commercial fisherman. I want to know what to do and what's in store for me. Can I see a picture of the fish?" No, you can't see a picture of the fish. I burned all those." "You burned pictures of your record-setting fish?" "Okay. Well, sir, what about the gear you used? Can I at least see what kind of gear you used to pull up such a monstrous animal? I want to know what I need to be like you one day." All right, I'll show you my gear. Come back, it's getting late. Come back in the morning, we'll go to my boat and I'll show you my gear." Young boy's very excited and he runs home. He can hardly sleep that night. And he wakes up with the sun and he goes back to the docks and he sees the old man on the docks and he goes up to him and he says, "Sir, I'm here. Can you show me the gear? Can you show it to me?" "Sorry, kid, after you left last night, I sunk my boat in the harbor." "What sense does that make, sir?" "Never mind." The kid walks back up the dock and runs into another fisherman who sees the disappointment on his face. And the fisherman says, "Son, I know why you look so disappointed. That old man told you he was the record-setting fisherman. But he's lying. I'm the record-setting fisherman. Here's the Guinness Book of World Records with my photograph and my fish." Now, ladies and gentlemen, the kid turned around and walked home after that. But let me ask you this. On his way home, do you think that young man thought that first fisherman was still the record-setting fisherman that he said he was? Of course not. Why not? Because he used his logic and his common sense. He used the evidence that was presented to him to make a determination of common sense. Even as a child, he was capable of doing that. What did he use? The circumstances. Well, what were the circumstances? The old man said he caught the biggest fish. He believed it. He had no reason not to. Until he says he cut it up for bait. Until he says he fired his crew and doesn't remember a single one of them. Until he says he burned all the photographs. And until he says he sunk his gear with his boat in the harbor. What sense did any of that make? None. The old man altered, deleted, or destroyed every piece of evidence in his custody and control. What he didn't alter, delete, or destroy was the Guinness Book of World Records that the other man had. Why? Because it was not in his custody or control. This case is no different. This case is no different. We're asking you, just like that young man, to use your common sense and your logic to come to a reasonable conclusion. And that's why you're here. This case is no different in that we're going to show you their version of events is a fishtail. That's all it is. And we're going to show you that using the circumstances surrounding this case. We're going to show you that this man right here, Sidney Moore, and his wife Tammy Moore conspired, planned, which is what the word conspire means, and executed that plan to kidnap Heather Elvis on December 18th of 2013 during the early morning dark hours. We're going to show you that using the circumstances surrounding this case. Circumstances, that is an important word here. Because the defense very well may dwell on the fact that this is a circumstantial kind of case. They may say that to you. They may say, well, you can't believe anything the state says because everything we're going to present to you is circumstantial. Let me say this at the onset. I would love to show you everything that was altered, deleted, or destroyed that was in the custody, care, and control of Sidney and Tammy Moore. But I can't. Because to their credit, if you can call it this, they did a good job in doing that. They truly did. But you can't ignore the circumstances. Circumstance, that's the root word of circumstantial. It's an event. Ladies and gentlemen, eyewitness testimony is a fine thing, but the law tells us one thing. We learned this in law school as lawyers. It is the least reliable of all evidence. People forget things, they misremember, and then they take the stand. We're fallible. So I'm okay showing you circumstances. I'm okay showing you events. I'm okay showing you history to prove our case. Most cases in criminal law, ladies and gentlemen of this jury, are circumstantial evidence. You can't change them. History don't change. You can deny it, but it still happened. Folks, I didn't live through the Holocaust. I don't know anybody that did. Quite frankly, I've never talked to anybody that did, and there are millions of people out there that deny it ever happened. But I know it occurred. I didn't see it, but I know it occurred. How do I know? Because the circumstances that I've been presented with during my life tell me that the Holocaust occurred. History cannot be changed. December 18th, 2013 cannot be changed. What they did on that night cannot be changed. They can alter, they can delete, and they can destroy all they want to that's in their custody and control. But luckily, there were things that were not in their custody and control, things they did not bank on existing. We're going to show you that, just like we're going to show you what they did get rid of. Ladies and gentlemen, 2,093 days ago. 2,093 days ago, I don't remember what I was doing. I can't tell you what I was doing, what we were doing. Can't tell you what you were doing. I can tell you what he was doing. He was taking her. It's been 2,093 days since Heather Elvis could wrap her arms around her father Terry, could kiss her mother Debbie, and tell her little sister Morgan that she loves her. 2,093 days ago, almost 6 years. It'll be 6 years come December. 2,093 days ago, they took her from her community, from her friends, and from her family. So what are the circumstances? Because that's what we're going to show you, the circumstances, the events, the history. Here's the circumstances. Middle of 2013, this young lady meets that defendant. They work together at the Tilted Kilt, a restaurant in Myrtle Beach. She's a hostess. He's a night maintenance man. They meet and an affair develops. It develops passionately. It's a romantic affair. And I say affair in the truest sense of the word because he's married to his co-defendant, Tammy Moore. Obviously, she doesn't know about this affair. It develops and he begins to bring her things to work, even when he's not working. Brings her things like coffee and donuts and bagels. He courts her, for lack of a better term. This goes on for quite some time, and they communicate extensively. When they're not in person, they communicate like every young girl communicates with everybody in the world via telephone. She uses her cell phone for everything. She texts him, she calls him, he texts her, he calls her. And we're going to show you that. We can show you visibly because it's a phone record that was not in their custody or control, and they couldn't alter, delete, or destroy it. That's something we can show you. Simultaneously, we're going to show you where Sidney, from his phone, was talking with his wife. And rightfully so. He's married to her. Just as extensively. He's talking to her, she's talking to him from her phone. So we're going to show you the communication between Heather and Sidney and Tammy. It's constant communication, ladies and gentlemen, and you're going to see it. And it's not out of the ordinary for somebody leading a double life, I guess, having an affair and being married. It's constant communication that doesn't stop, and then it does. It stops abruptly. And it stops abruptly for one reason. Because that man's wife finds out about her. She reaches out to her. We're going to show you that from her phone. And that causes all communication to stop. One reason. The boss lady lays down the law. And Sidney gets put on probation. He submits completely. What does that mean? There are conditions now. She doesn't leave him, but he don't get a phone anymore. She takes his phone. We'll present evidence to show you that. He can't work at the Tilted Kilt anymore. He can work at his other jobs, the other restaurants he works at night, but not the Tilted Kilt, because she works there. She ain't having it. Even when he can work at his other jobs, ladies and gentlemen, she ain't leaving his side. They're stuck at the hip. He is not going anywhere without her, and she's got his phone and hers. There are other conditions. It sounds like I'm making it up or exaggerating, but I'm not, and we'll present evidence to this effect. Another condition, ladies and gentlemen, is that at night, when he lays down in the bed, he's handcuffed to the bed. I'm not exaggerating, literally handcuffed to the bed. She does not trust him enough to get up and pee in the middle of the night. Another condition, he gets branded. Gets Tammy tattooed across his lower abdomen. He's got it right now. We'll present evidence to show you that. So he's on probation. And Heather is done. She's caught. She knows she's made a mistake. She wants no part of it. She's terrified of his wife, and rightfully so. She wants no more part of it. She's done. The communication stops. Sidney doesn't have a phone to call her. She doesn't want to call him. He doesn't need to call his wife because she's always with him. We'll show you this visually. She tries to move on with her life. She tries to see other people. She gets happy again. We'll present evidence to show you that. Her colleagues, her co-workers will tell you that. She's her old self again. The Moores, they move on too in their own way, I suppose. They buy a new brand new Ford black F-150, take a trip out west. In the meantime, Heather is trying to move on in her own way. There are other changes in Heather, though, other than being her old self again. There are physical manifestations in Heather. She starts to gain weight rapidly. She goes up 3 bra sizes at work. Well, that's a weird thing for you to know, Mr. Helms. You're right, it is. I know that, however, because we're going to put testimony on the stand from her supervisor who issues her uniform to her. Part of her uniform is a bra, and she had to issue her 3 new bras because of the succession rate, the growth rate in her cup size. She gains weight, she goes up, and she begins taking pregnancy tests. You'll hear the testimony. So she thinks she's pregnant. Now, the Moores come back from their trip out west, but still she wants nothing to do with them. Ladies and gentlemen, she is legitimately terrified of her. Not necessarily Sidney, but his co-conspirator, yes. To exemplify that, to illustrate that, you'll hear a story from the stand where her co-workers try to play a prank on her. Once the affair is discovered, they tell her that Tammy is coming to the restaurant to confront her. You'll hear testimony that she's so terrified of that woman that she gathers her belongings and leaves in the middle of her shift. Never done it before. You'll hear she was a great employee, but she leaves in the middle of her shift. That's how scared she is of his co-conspirator, and rightfully so. December 18th, 2013. This is where the story develops. It's where it takes a turn. The Moores go out and have a big night. Drink it up. Go to Broadway at the beach. Y'all know Broadway. Y'all are from Horry County. Then after midnight, the Moores, and they're together, we trace the phones. Again, they couldn't delete the phone records, ladies and gentlemen. They go after midnight to a Walmart in the middle of Myrtle Beach. We trace the phones. Furthermore, you're going to see a video from the parking lot of Walmart. In that video, you'll see that after midnight, in the black F-150, they drive up into the parking lot and park in a handicapped parking spot. Sidney Moore, and it's a clear video, gets out of that truck and goes into that Walmart. He walks directly to the feminine aisle where he picks up the most inexpensive pregnancy test that store has for 88 cents. He immediately grabs that single item from the middle of that store and walks back to the cash register. When he gets to the cash register, he asks the cashier for a box of cigars, Swisher Sweets. And she gives that to him, and he pays an exact change. He does not use an ATM, a debit card, a credit card, a check. He uses exact change to pay for these items. He leaves, goes back outside, gets in the truck. You'll see the truck with the Beach Ford tag on the front. They drive down Seaboard Street, dark Seaboard Street, in the early morning hours of 2018 with their 2 cell phones in tow. But despite having those 2 cellular telephones, they go to a Circle K where there's a payphone. An empty Circle K where there's a payphone. When I say empty, the whole parking lot is empty. You'll see it. But they don't park in the parking lot, the well-lit parking lot. No. They park across a dark street, Seaboard Street. Circumstances. And walks across that dark street, Sidney does, walks across that dark street to that payphone and picks it up. He picks up that phone and he dials one number. After 2 months of zero contact with Heather Elvis, he calls her from a payphone. Despite having 2 working cellular telephones in their possession, he calls her from a payphone after hiding his truck. They have a 4 to 5 minute conversation. It's not a voicemail, it's a conversation. After that conversation, he hangs up that phone, walks back across that dark street to his black F-150. Heather immediately calls her friend and roommate, Bree. You're going to hear her testify. She'll tell you about that. After she talks to Bree briefly, she picks up her cell phone, y'all, and a number she's never heard from before, a number she's never seen before, the payphone number, she dials back 9 times. A number that's never dialed her phone, a number that she's never dialed. She calls back not once, twice, but reaches out to it 9 times. She's trying to reach the person she just talked to. She has no idea it's a payphone. Who talks on a payphone in 2013? Payphone's not even there anymore. But I digress. She doesn't get Sidney because Sidney's gone. Ladies and gentlemen, this payphone call is the turning point in Heather Elvis's life. This is what leads to her abduction. She, for the first time in 2 months, picks up her phone after that 9-time attempt to call that payphone and calls Sidney Moore. After she reaches out to Sidney Moore's cell phone and those phones communicate, she goes to the darkest, most desolate place in this county, Peachtree Boat Landing. No indication she's ever been there before, no indication she has any business there. There's nobody there, no parties. We'll have an officer testify that was patrolling the area, no people, no buildings, no lights, no cameras. The darkest, most desolate place. If you're going to Peachtree Boat Landing, you want to go to Peachtree Boat Landing. There's a reason at 4 a.m. And that's what she did after talking to him. Coincidentally, where do the Moores live? Down the other end of the street. A residential neighborhood, no commercial buildings, no stores. A residential neighborhood with nothing but houses. Sidney Moore lives down the street. Heather Elvis goes to the landing, and that is the last anyone hears from her. Her phone dies, and then she's never heard from again, ladies and gentlemen. Coincidentally, you're going to hear testimony, and you're going to see a video of that man's truck coming from his house down Highway 814 and Mill Pond Road to the only destination on Mill Pond Road at the other end, Peachtree Boat Landing. What is at Peachtree Boat Landing? I just told you, nothing except her. And she disappears. I'd like to tell you I know what they did with her, but I don't. Because she became their custody and control. And she disappeared. Let's put it like that. Ladies and gentlemen, just as telling as their behavior before her disappearance, during, is their behavior after their disappearance. December 19th marks a new day. Because on December 19th, the day after this young lady disappears, after talking to him last and going to Peachtree Boat Landing, his life is normal again. He's off probation. Tammy's all of a sudden happy. Have your phone back. Go to work by yourself. Get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom without my permission. It's amazing. It's a circumstance. You can't ignore it. It's logic and it's common sense. We'll show you what they deleted, altered, and destroyed, but we'll show you what they couldn't. I want you to pay attention. It could get mundane, but we'll try and do this as expeditiously as possible. Thank you for your time and your attention. Ladies and gentlemen, the family deserves this day in court. The defendant is entitled to this day in court. Heather deserves this day in court. 2,093 days in the making. Thank you.